My name is Natalie Morgan. I'm 27, a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm, and the reliable middle child of the Morgan family. For years, my life was an endless loop of spreadsheets by day and family obligations by night, planning birthdays, booking trips, remembering everyone's allergies and secrets. I thought that was love being useful, staying small, never asking for too much. But on Christmas morning, I woke up to an empty house. 17 family members left for the trip I organized and paid for without me. That was the day I realized being needed isn't the same as being loved. I woke up to silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that feels unnatural in a house meant to hold life and laughter. For a few seconds I lay there, eyes half open, brain foggy with sleep waiting for the usual sounds to seep in. Mom humming Christmas carols in the kitchen. Dad's terrible attempt at grinding coffee beans without waking everyone. Kyle yelling at Amanda for using all the hot water, the distant clatter of suitcases rolling across hardwood floors as cousins argued about who packed too much. But there was nothing. Just the faint ticking of my alarm clock, a sound I'd never really noticed before. My heart gave a quick, nervous flutter as I reached for my phone. 9:15 a.m. The alarm had been set for 5:30. I jolted upright, panic rising like bile in my throat. How could I have slept through it? The trip was today. Christmas morning was the departure. 17 people, 4 cars, 20 hours of driving ahead. They couldn't have left yet. They wouldn't leave without me. I threw off the blankets and stumbled to my window, half expecting to see everyone milling around the driveway, cars being packed, cousins taking selfies, Amanda ordering Kyle to rearrange bags so her makeup case didn't get squished. But the driveway was empty except for my Honda coated in a thin layer of frost under the pale December sun. I turned from the window, heart thudding against my ribs. Maybe they were all inside waiting for me to wake up so we could exchange gifts before leaving. Maybe. I rushed into the hallway. The house felt wrong. The air was too still, too cold, like the aftermath of a party everyone forgot to clean up. I called out, "Mom, Dad, Amanda, Kyle." My voice echoed down the hall, bouncing back at me with no reply. My parents' room was first, bed made, suitcases gone. The reading glasses my dad always forgot on the nightstand gone. Amanda's room pristine, the lingering scent of her floral perfume still hanging in the air like an insult. Kyle's room a mess as usual, except his gaming console was missing and his Christmas backpack was gone too. Room by room, the truth unfolded like a slow horror. Living room Christmas tree lights still twinkling, ornaments glittering mockingly. Stockings were empty, ripped open at the top. Dining room, the table half cleared from last night's dinner, a few crumbs left behind like evidence of happier times. Kitchen dishes piled in the sink, coffee mugs with lipstick stains, plates smeared with syrup. They'd eaten breakfast. They'd gathered in this house, eaten together, laughed, sipped coffee without me. Then they left. The front door creaked open under my shaking hand. The morning was bright and bitterly cold, the air burning my lungs as I stepped onto the porch barefoot. Empty. 4 cars should have been there, engines idling, windows fogged from the heat inside, cousins fighting over seat choices. But there was only silence and the sound of my own ragged breathing. I looked out at the quiet suburban street lined with bare winter trees, Christmas wreaths hanging on every door except mine, and felt something deep inside me crack. My phone was still clutched in my palm. I checked notifications, nothing. No missed calls, no texts saying, "Hurry, we're outside," or "Where are you?" Just a blank, glowing screen reflecting my stunned face back at me. I called Mom. It rang 4 times before she picked up, her voice, bright and cheerful, layered over the sound of Christmas music and chatter. "Natalie, good morning, sweetheart. Did you just wake up?" My throat tightened. You left without me." A pause. "What?" "No, we wait. Aren't you in the van with your cousins?" I could hear them in the background. Laughter, conversations about where to stop for lunch. Amanda's voice high and animated. Kyle yelling about snacks. They were hours away already. "No, Mom," I whispered, fighting tears. "I'm at home. Alone." There was another pause. Longer, muffled voices like she'd covered the phone. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted, less cheerful, more rehearsed. "Oh, Natalie. There must have been a mix-up. We all thought you were with Rachel's van. It was so hectic this morning. You know how it is. I'm sure we can figure something out. Maybe you can catch a flight and meet us there. I have to go. Reception's getting spotty. Love you." And just like that, the line went dead. I stood there in my pajamas, the wind whipping my hair across my face, toes numb against the freezing wood of the porch, and felt the last bit of warmth drain from my body. I wasn't forgotten. I was left. Deliberately or not, I didn't know yet. But as I turned back into the empty house, passing the mocking glow of Christmas lights and the pile of unclaimed presents under the tree, one truth burned in my chest. This was no accident. And whatever came next, nothing about this Christmas would ever be the same. Growing up in the Morgan family meant you were never alone, whether you wanted to be or not. Ours was the kind of family that believed togetherness was everything. Holidays weren't holidays unless the house was bursting at the seams with people, noise, and casserole dishes nobody actually liked. Birthdays were loud affairs with off-key singing, melting ice cream cakes, and at least 3 aunts pinching your cheeks no matter how old you got. We were the Morgans, and being a Morgan came with rules. Family first, always show up, and never, ever air dirty laundry in public. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, had 3 children. Amanda, the oldest, was born perfect and never let anyone forget it. Valedictorian homecoming Queen College on a full-ride scholarship, and now a rising star in her consulting firm. She walked through life like the world owed her success, and it usually delivered. Then there was me, Natalie, the quiet middle child, who learned early that the best way to keep the peace was to take up as little space as possible. And finally, Kyle, the baby, who arrived 7 years after me, ensuring his status as the golden boy. He was charming, funny, and spoiled in ways he didn't even realize, but it wasn't just us. There were the aunts and uncles who floated in and out of our house, so often they practically lived there. Aunt Susan with her harsh perfume and sharper opinions. Uncle Robert always telling the same stories about his college football glory days. Aunt Karen, who bounced between boyfriends but never showed up without a new designer purse and an opinion on your love life. Then the cousins Rachel, Mark, Stephanie, Tyler, who felt more like siblings given how often they were around. Our family gatherings were crowded, chaotic, and sometimes suffocating, but loneliness was never an option. Being the middle child was exactly what the stereotypes promise. Amanda was the golden child, and Kyle was the baby who could do no wrong. And me, I was the reliable one. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who organized family gatherings and group gifts, who knew everyone's allergies, favorite desserts, and secret insecurities. I was the helper, the peacekeeper, the girl in the shadows who made sure everyone else was comfortable, even if it meant dimming my own light. And despite all that, I loved them. I truly did. Because in between the snide comments and microaggressions, there were good memories. Movie nights curled up under shared blankets, late-night card games that devolved into laughter backyard barbecues with Dad burning burgers while Amanda complained about her calorie goals, Kyle spraying everyone with the garden hose until Mom yelled at him to stop. Every Christmas was the same routine. On Christmas Eve, the entire extended family gathered at our house. We'd exchange gifts usually after an argument about who opened first, then eat too much sugar, and fall asleep on every available couch and floor cushion. The next morning, Christmas Day, was for the trip. It started 10 years ago as a spontaneous getaway, just my parents, Amanda, Kyle, and me, renting a cozy cabin in the Smoky Mountains. But word spread, and soon cousins and aunts and uncles joined in. By last year, we were 16 people packed into 3 cabins playing board games by the fire, sledding down hills, and crowding around kitchen counters to bake cookies and gossip. This year would have been 17 with Amanda's fiancé, Ryan. He worked in finance and came from a family with money and old country club connections, exactly the kind of pedigree my parents adored. Their engagement party back in September had been a grand event. Mom cried happy tears as Amanda showed off her ring, and Dad boasted about his brilliant daughter who snagged such a catch. Meanwhile, my promotion to senior account manager at the marketing firm where I'd worked 5 years earned nothing but a distracted, "That's nice, honey," from Mom, and a skeptical, "Does it come with a raise from Dad?" When I explained that the salary bump would happen after my 6-month review, he just sighed and changed the subject to Kyle's college plans. Kyle, who'd been accepted to Princeton, was the star of the moment. My parents had become Princeton parents overnight, ordering university sweatshirts, mugs, and bumper stickers. They spoke about him with a reverence usually reserved for saints. "When Kyle graduates, he'll have so many opportunities," Mom would say, proudly, despite the fact he hadn't even started classes yet. I didn't resent their achievements. Amanda worked hard, even if she was arrogant about it. Kyle was smart, though he coasted on charm when he could. But I couldn't deny that sometimes in the shadows of their spotlight, I felt like a stagehand in my own life's play. Still, no matter how overlooked I felt, I cherished these trips. Last Christmas in the Smoky Mountains, Mom actually complimented my tree decorations. Dad asked my opinion about his retirement plan. Aunt Susan and I baked cookies all night while Uncle Robert taught the younger cousins poker. For once, I felt included, seen. This year, I hoped for the same. I'd suggested the Colorado resort myself, researched options, created a PowerPoint presentation for family meetings, and put the $15,500 reservation on my credit card, as always expecting reimbursement during Christmas gift exchanges. It felt like my chance to shine, to finally step out of the shadow of being just the helpful middle child and be someone they were proud to know. But now, standing barefoot in the cold December hallway of an empty house surrounded by twinkling lights and unopened gifts, I realized something terrifying. No matter how hard I tried to earn my place, it had never really been mine to begin with. They say every family has a role for each child: the overachiever, the rebel, the peacemaker, the golden child, the scapegoat. I'd spent my entire life trying to figure out which box I fit into. Turns out mine wasn't on their list. I wasn't the star, the screw-up, or the baby. I was useful. And usefulness isn't love. It's utility. If someone needed a reservation for dinner on short notice, I handled it. If Aunt Susan's gluten allergy was forgotten during potluck planning, I made her a separate dish. When Mom stressed about gift lists, I created color-coded spreadsheets of who bought what for whom. When Dad couldn't remember his passwords for the streaming accounts, I reset them. When Amanda needed a last-minute PowerPoint design for a client pitch, I spent 3 hours fixing her fonts and aligning her graphs. And Kyle, sweet, charming Kyle, didn't even ask anymore. He just sent me links to things he needed: new headphones, software, subscriptions, textbook rentals, and assumed I'd handle it. Because I always did. At first, it felt good. Being needed meant I mattered. Every task was a chance to prove my worth. "See, I'm important. You can't live without me." But over time, the requests stopped feeling like gratitude and started feeling like demands. There was no please or thank you anymore. Just expectations and disappointment if I was busy with, say, my own life. Family trips were my specialty. 10 years running, I'd been the unofficial travel agent of the Morgans, Flights, hotels, rental cars, activities, group discounts, meal plans. I managed it all. The first few years, they'd praised me. "Natalie, how do you do it all?" Mom would beam while Amanda rolled her eyes and Kyle ruffled my hair. By year 5, it was assumed I would handle everything without reminders. By year 10, if I made a tiny mistake booking a hotel too far from the city center or forgetting to prepay luggage fees, it was met with thinly veiled irritation. God, Natalie, it's not that hard. For this year's Christmas trip to Colorado, I'd spent months researching. I found a resort with private cabins circling a main lodge, an ice skating rink, ski trails, snowmobiling, sledding, and a 5-star restaurant for Christmas dinner. I organized 3 family meetings to present options. I created packing lists tailored to each person, including medications and allergy warnings. I pre-ordered sled rentals, snowmobile tours, and even booked a photographer for family portraits in the snow. I arranged the Christmas gift exchange so no one would get duplicate gifts or someone they didn't like. I curated playlists for the 20-hour drive, alternating upbeat road trip songs with calming Christmas classics to keep tensions low. I even bought travel pillows, hand warmers, and motion sickness bands for those prone to car sickness. All of this was done outside my 50-hour work weeks as a senior account manager. Late at night, bleary-eyed, eating leftovers over my laptop, I planned the perfect trip for people who rarely asked me how my day was. The reservation totaled $15,500, 6 cabins, premium Christmas package, spa credit special, Christmas Eve dinner, snow tubing passes for the kids, hot chocolate bar vouchers, a private Santa visit for the little cousins, and a horse-drawn sleigh ride. I put it on my personal credit card as I did every year. They'd pay me back at Christmas when we exchanged gifts, or at least promised to pay me back as they always did. Sometimes I got partial repayments in cash stuffed envelopes. Other times excuses about tight budgets, and "we'll get you next month" were offered instead. But I never pressed too hard. Asking for repayment felt rude, like I was implying they'd take advantage of me. But now looking back, I realized they did. Repeatedly. I don't think they even realized how much I spent each year, or how it chipped away at my financial security. They just knew it got done. Because Natalie does it. Because Natalie always does it. Because Natalie is reliable. Last year in the Smoky Mountains, I caught a fleeting glimpse of what it felt like to be something more than their assistant. Aunt Susan and I baked cookies all evening, and she told me she admired how organized I was. Mom complimented the decorations I put up in the cabins, saying they looked better than the ones at home. Dad asked for my thoughts on his retirement plans, and for a brief moment I felt seen. Not as the planner, not as the helper, but as a daughter, a person, someone whose opinion mattered. That memory is what kept me going this year. Maybe I told myself as I coordinated logistics and maxed out my Amex this would be the year they saw me as more than the useful middle child. Maybe they'd say, "Thank you, Natalie. We couldn't have done this without you. We're so proud of you." Instead, they left me behind. No calls, no texts, no checking if I was in one of the cars before pulling out of the driveway. The silence in that empty house that morning wasn't just quiet, it was an answer to every unspoken question I'd asked my whole life. Did they see me? Did I matter? Standing there, staring at the blinking Christmas lights reflecting off unopened presents, I felt the truth settle heavy in my chest. I wasn't their golden child. I wasn't their baby. I wasn't even their equal. I was their tool. And that was about to change. Looking back, the warning signs were there. Hiding in plain sight like dark clouds on a horizon I refused to acknowledge. I told myself it was nothing. Just busy schedules, distracted minds, normal family chaos. But the truth is, isolation doesn't arrive with fanfare. It seeps in quietly, like water through cracked foundations, until one day you wake up and your entire house is sinking. It started with silences. Not the comfortable kind where words aren't needed because love fills the spaces. These silences were brittle. Conversations would stop mid-sentence when I walked into the room like a record scratch in a sitcom. Amanda would glance at her phone. Kyle would suddenly remember an errand. Mom would fuss with the sink, scrubbing the same spot over and over, as if polishing her guilt away. Text messages about the trip went unanswered. I'd send detailed plans, weather forecasts, packing reminders, driving routes, and see the red receipts sit there with no reply. Days later, someone would ask a question I'd already answered, as if my words evaporated into the void the moment I pressed send. Family gatherings shrank without me. I'd find out later that Amanda hosted a dinner. Kyle went bowling with cousins. Mom and Dad visited Aunt Susan for brunch. When I asked why no one invited me, there was always a flicker of surprise in their eyes, as if I were a ghost speaking through a veil. "Oh, we just assumed you were busy. You're always working." It sounded like sympathy. It felt like acid. 2 weeks before the trip, I walked into the kitchen late at night for water and heard my mother and Amanda whispering. Their voices had that low, urgent tone of people conspiring. Amanda's laugh was sharp, a breaking icicle. When I stepped into the doorway, they jumped. "Christmas cookies," Amanda blurted too quickly. Mom forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just planning some Christmas surprises, sweetheart? Nothing for you to worry about." Nothing for me to worry about. The words nestled into my chest like a thorn. A few days later, Mom asked to borrow my credit card. "Just as a backup for the trip," she said, twisting her dish towel in her hands. I frowned. "Why, the reservation is already paid, and it's under my name." She froze for a moment, her fingers stilling. Then she shook her head too briskly. "In case we need to make changes." Her voice was sharp around the edges, daring me to question further. So I didn't. I just handed her the card, feeling something inside me sink a little lower. The night before departure, I stayed up until nearly 2 a.m., wrapping last-minute gifts and double-checking packing lists. The living room glowed with soft Christmas lights, golden and warm, wrapping the house in an illusion of comfort. I sat alone on the floor, tape and ribbons scattered around me like debris after a storm. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but I pressed on. Because if I got everything right, if the bows were perfect and the playlist flawless and the sled rentals confirmed, then maybe, just maybe, they'd see me. That night, I moved through the house like a ghost, touching doorknobs, flicking off lights, straightening shoes by the front door. Each small act whispered a desperate prayer. Please let them need me. Please let them love me. When I finally crawled into bed, my body ached with an emptiness I didn't want to name. Outside my window, the frost crept across the glass in delicate, merciless patterns. The moon hung low and indifferent, bathing my room in silver light that felt colder than darkness. I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. The plan was to wake before everyone else, shower, pack my toiletries, and help load the cars. As I closed my eyes, I imagined the morning chaos, Dad grumbling about Kyle's overstuffed bags, Amanda yelling at someone to hurry up, Mom fussing with snacks and travel mugs. I pictured myself in the middle of it all, calm, organized, essential. But the truth was already written in their silences. I just hadn't learned to read it yet. Because when a family decides you're no longer part of them, they don't tell you directly. They let the air grow colder around you. They let your words dissolve into static. They let your place at the table disappear so gradually you almost believe you gave it up willingly. That night, as I drifted into exhausted sleep, a single thought flickered in the dim corners of my mind. What if they left without me? I pushed it away as paranoid, ridiculous, unworthy of consideration. Because I was Natalie the planner, the helper, the reliable one. They couldn't do this without me. Could they? My alarm never went off. When I opened my eyes, the sunlight streaming through my blinds was bright and unforgiving. For a moment, confusion wrapped around me like a heavy quilt. Something was wrong. The light was too high, too late. I grabbed my phone. 9:15 a.m. My breath caught in my throat, a small, strangled sound that sounded like someone else's panic. The alarm had been set for 5:30. I always woke up before everyone else on trip mornings, packed the last-minute toiletries, brewed coffee for Mom, loaded the trunk with gifts and snack bags. That was my role. The reliable one. The helper. I threw off my blankets and rushed to the window, hoping, praying to see cars lined up in the driveway, cousins milling around Dad strapping down suitcases with Kyle arguing about trunk space, Amanda fussing about her makeup case getting squished. But there was nothing. Just my Honda alone, coated in a thin layer of frost that glinted mockingly in the morning sun. No, 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 no. My chest tightened, panic clawing up my throat as I stumbled into the hallway. The floorboards felt ice cold under my bare feet. I called out, voice trembling, "Mom, Dad, Amanda, Kyle." Silence answered me. Not the peaceful, sleepy silence of early morning, but a hollow, echoing void that felt wrong, deeply, sickeningly wrong. I ran to my parents' room first. The bed was made. Their nightstands were clear except for Dad's reading lamp switched off neatly. Their suitcases were gone. Amanda's room was spotless, her bed tucked tight, her makeup table empty. Only the faint scent of her expensive perfume lingered in the air like a slap. Kyle's room looked like a tornado had hit it. Blankets twisted, closet doors half open, but his gaming console was gone along with his Christmas backpack stuffed with travel snacks. Each empty room made my chest constrict tighter and tighter like an invisible fist closing around my ribs. I stumbled downstairs, searching for any sign that this wasn't real. The Christmas tree still sparkled in the living room ornaments, glinting under soft white lights. Stockings hung limp over the fireplace, gifts piled beneath them untouched. In the kitchen, breakfast. Dishes sat piled in the sink, coffee mugs, syrup smeared plates, forks with bits of scrambled eggs still clinging to them. They'd eaten. Together. Without me. I reached out and touched one of the mugs. It was still faintly warm. My vision blurred as I rushed to the front door and flung it open. Cold winter air blasted my face, cutting through my thin pajamas. The driveway yawned empty. 4 cars should have been there, engines idling, windows fogged from heaters running. Instead, there was nothing. Just my breath hanging in the frozen air like ghost smoke. They were gone. I stood barefoot on the porch, shaking, staring out at the quiet suburban street lined with skeletal trees and neat houses, all decorated with Christmas wreaths and twinkling lights. A neighbor across the street waved to me as he loaded bags into his own SUV, eyes crinkling in a cheerful, good morning smile. I couldn't move, couldn't lift my hand to wave back. Slowly, I turned and walked back inside, each step feeling heavier than the last. My phone buzzed weakly in my palm, notifications lighting up the dark screen. I flipped it over. No missed calls, no texts asking where I was. No, we're waiting, hurry, or are you awake? Just silence. My chest felt like it was caving in. I scrolled through my contacts with trembling fingers and pressed Mom. It rang 4 times before she picked up. Her voice was bright, cheerful, layered over the muffled sounds of Christmas music and voices and laughter. "Natalie, good morning, sweetheart. Did you just wake up for a moment?" I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, in a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from myself, I whispered, "You left without me." There was a pause, just for a second, but long enough for me to hear the truth in her silence before she forced a laugh. "What? No, honey, we wait. Aren't you in the van with your cousins?" I heard them in the background, Amanda complaining about how long the drive was, Kyle shouting about snacks, Dad's deep rumble asking if anyone needed to stop for gas. The warmth and chaos of family already hours down the highway. No, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. I'm at home, alone. Another pause. Longer. I heard her cover the phone, muffled voices arguing, then her voice returned, forced and tight. Oh, Natalie, there must have been a miscommunication. We all thought you were with Rachel's van. It was just so hectic this morning, you know how it is. I'm sure we can figure something out. Maybe you can catch a flight and meet us there. I have to go, reception's getting spotty. Love you. The line went dead. I stood there in the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. The silence around me roared louder than any scream. In that moment, I felt something inside me snap, not loudly, not violently, but like the quiet splintering of frozen branches under too much weight. Because the truth had been there all along, hidden under polite dismissals and forced smiles. This wasn't an accident. I wasn't forgotten. I was left. And whatever came next, nothing about this Christmas would ever be the same. I sat down at the kitchen table, the cold wood biting into my bare thighs as my phone slipped from my fingers and landed face up beside an empty mug. For a long moment, I just stared at it. The lock screen glowed with its usual calming mountain wallpaper. It felt like mockery, peaceful peaks under a pastel dawn, while my entire world crumbled around me. I don't know how long I sat there before instinct kicked in. Maybe it was denial, maybe hope, but I picked up my phone and opened Instagram. Surely someone had posted about the trip by now. Amanda was addicted to posting selfies on road trips, even if she always filtered them until her skin looked like porcelain and her eyes like a cartoon doll. And there it was, her story. A boomerang of her and Ryan clinking travel mugs in the passenger seat. She wore a knitted cream beanie with a faux fur pom-pom, her lips perfectly glossed. The caption read, "Best Christmas road trip ever." I tapped through. Another post. Cousins packed into a van, arms thrown around each other, Kyle giving a thumbs up from the back row. A diner breakfast stop somewhere along the highway. Plates of pancakes and scrambled eggs. Amanda with a fork in her mouth, eyes half closed in her practiced influencer pose. Fueling up before hitting the slopes, the caption chirped. My chest ached so badly it felt like my ribs might snap from the inside out. I scrolled down to the comments. Cousin Rachel, can't wait to see the cabins. Kyle road trip vibes mom, so blessed to have almost everyone together. Almost everyone. The words hit me like a slap across the face. Almost. She knew. They all knew. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't chaos or miscommunication. This was intentional. I felt dizzy. The room spun around me as tears burned hot and unspilled behind my eyes. My fingers trembled as I switched to Facebook. More posts from family members, group photos captioned, "Morgan Christmas Trip 2025. Smiling faces pressed together in cozy sweaters framed by the windows of a diner booth. In each image, there was an empty space at the edge of the bench, like a puzzle piece deliberately removed. But then I noticed something else. In the comments, a cousin replied to another, "Just like we planned. Operation Road Trip is a go." My stomach turned to ice. Just like we planned. I searched my phone for group chats about the trip. There was nothing. No notifications beyond the unanswered logistical messages I'd sent. No updates, no last-minute packing reminders. It was like they'd ghosted me in real time. Hands shaking, I opened messages and scrolled down to Amanda's chat. That's when it pinged a new message from her, as if she knew I was looking. It was a screenshot. The image showed a conversation I wasn't part of. Messages from Amanda, Kyle, and cousin Rachel. One line was highlighted. "He's really not here." OMG, our plan worked. Below it, Amanda had typed, "Oops, wrong person. Ignore that." I stared at those words, my eyes blurring. He's really not here. He, not she. They didn't even see me as a person, just an inconvenience with a pronoun they barely remembered. And our plan worked. I pressed a hand to my mouth as a sob tried to claw its way up my throat. I swallowed it down, pressing so hard my lips burned. My brain kept trying to find another explanation, desperate to cling to some version of reality, where this was a misunderstanding, a cruel joke, a mistake they'd apologize for. But the truth sat in front of me, cold and undeniable. They had planned to leave without me. They didn't want me there. And worse, this was a relief to them, a success, something they congratulated each other for. I typed back only 2 words, "Merry Christmas." Then I put my phone down and let the tears come. They fell hot and silent, dripping onto my pajamas, soaking into my thighs. My shoulders shook with each breath, grief and rage tearing through me in jagged waves. For years, I'd told myself I was part of this family, that they loved me just in quieter ways, that they needed me. But sitting there in the empty kitchen, surrounded by dishes they hadn't bothered to wash, ornaments I'd hung alone, and the dying echo of their absence, I finally understood I was never family. I was never daughter or sister or cousin. I was the planner, the helper, the one who booked the trips, made the calls, arranged the chaos. I was their silent machine humming in the background to keep their lives running smoothly. And machines aren't invited to Christmas. My hands were trembling so violently, I almost dropped my phone. I needed answers, real answers, not the sugar-coated excuses they'd fed me my entire life. I opened my laptop, eyes burning with unshed tears, and logged into our family's shared cloud storage. It was supposed to be for photos, recipes, and vacation documents, but Amanda, ever careless with tech, often backed up her entire phone data there, including text messages. I clicked into her folder, my breath coming in shallow, ragged pulls. Hundreds of backup files sat in neat little rows. I scrolled, heart thundering against my ribs, until I found a conversation titled "Christmas Plans." My fingers hovered over the file. Part of me didn't want to see, didn't want confirmation that my worst fear wasn't paranoia, but reality. But I clicked. As the messages appeared, my eyes darted over Amanda's words, first laced with casual cruelty. Do we really have to bring Natalie last year? She ruined everything with her drama. Mom's reply felt like a slap. She booked everything. It's all on her card. Amanda responded without hesitation, so we let her pay, then leave without her. Win-win. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away, forcing myself to read every syllable. Another thread with Kyle followed. Mom's worried about leaving her behind, he wrote, to which Amanda scoffed. She sleeps like the dead. By the time she wakes up, we'll be halfway to Colorado. Kyle replied, True. She'll probably just book a flight and act like everything's fine. She always does. Amanda's agreement was icy exactly, less drama for us. Then I found it a group chat vote. Amanda had sent out a poll. Do we really want Natalie there this year? Votes trickled in 12, against bringing me 3, 4, and 2 abstaining. My own parents had voted against me. Mom wrote, She is family. But I suppose it would be easier without her feelings to manage, and Dad, ever indifferent, merely replied, Whatever you decide, Margaret. It felt like my heart stopped beating, like all the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving me floating in a vacuum of betrayal and disbelief. I read it again and again, trying to make it say something different, trying to erase those words from my reality. Manage her feelings. That's what I'd been reduced to, a burden of emotions, too heavy for them to carry. Easier to leave me behind than acknowledge me as a person. The threads continued, revealing Cousin Rachel suggesting excuses if I called, and Uncle Robert joking about how peaceful the trip would be without the planner princess hovering. Then Amanda's final dagger twisted deeper as she typed, She'll pay off the resort anyway. She's too embarrassed to let them think she can't cover it. Even if she finds out, we still get a free Christmas. Kyle simply responded with a laughing emoji. I stared at the screen, the taste of iron sharp on my tongue, as I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. The pain grounded me, anchored me to reality. They hadn't just forgotten me. They hadn't overlooked me. They planned this plan to use my money, planned to use my efforts, planned to erase me from their perfect Christmas, all while smiling at me across dinner tables, sending half-hearted texts about family love and letting me believe I belonged. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks, hot and silent, dripping onto my keyboard, but inside something else began to bloom. Something dark. Something cold and strangely calm. It wasn't grief anymore. Grief was familiar. I'd lived with grief my entire life, grieving a family that never really saw me. No, this was different. This was rage. Not loud thrashing rage, but cold, crystalline rage. The kind that sharpens your mind and steadies your hands. The kind that says, never again. They thought I'd sit here alone crying into my coffee while they unwrapped gifts I'd bought, ate meals I'd arranged, and posed in front of cabins I'd paid for. They thought I'd swallow it, smile through it, and welcome them home with open arms, like the reliable helper I'd always been. They were wrong. I closed the laptop slowly, wiping tears from my cheeks with the back of my trembling hand. My reflection in the dark screen looked different. Eyes red and swollen but steady, mouth set in a firm line. They wanted a Christmas without me. They were about to get it, but not the way they planned. I sat there for what felt like hours staring at the dimmed laptop screen reflecting my tear-streaked face. The Christmas tree lights blinked softly in the living room, casting flickering shadows across the floor. They looked so beautiful, peaceful, like a life I'd always wanted but never truly had. Inside me, grief clawed at my ribs, hot and suffocating. My family. The people I'd built my entire identity around. The people I sacrificed for. The people I defended every time friends told me they didn't deserve me. The people I believed would love me back if I just worked harder, stayed softer, kept giving until it finally became enough. But it was never enough. And as I sat there, grief slowly shifted, molten and heavy, until it cooled into something harder, something colder. Rage. Not chaotic rage, not screaming, table-flipping, throat-tearing rage. No, this was a quiet, precise fury. The kind that sharpens your mind into crystal clarity. The kind that whispers, they used you. Now what are you going to do about it? I closed my eyes and let the truth settle into my bones. They planned this. They planned to leave me behind, to steal what I'd built for them, to spend the money I didn't even have. And they thought I'd just accept it. Part of me wanted to. Part of me whispered, "Don't rock the boat, Natalie. Just book a flight. Go there. Pretend everything is fine. At least you'll still have them. At least you won't be alone." But a deeper part of me, a small, trembling voice I'd ignored for far too long, finally spoke up. No, not this time. Because if I went now, if I let them win what was left of me to salvage, I would never earn their love. Because love was never the transaction here, only usefulness. I was nothing more than their silent, compliant tool, and I was done being used. I stood up, legs unsteady at first, then stronger, as adrenaline coursed through my veins. I wiped my tears away, leaving red streaks across my cheeks, but I didn't care. I walked to the Christmas tree and looked at the gifts I'd wrapped with shaking, exhausted hands at 2 a.m. last night. Each ribbon curled perfectly, each tag handwritten with care. I thought about how no one would open them this morning, how the family I bought them for had decided I wasn't worth taking along. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishing them. It was about reclaiming myself. I picked up my phone and called the resort, Pinehurst Mountain Resort. "This is Melanie. How can I help you?" My voice trembled only once before steel settled in. Hi, Melanie. My name is Natalie Morgan. I have a reservation under that name starting tomorrow for 6 cabins Christmas premium package. Yes, Miss Morgan, I see it here. For 17 guests. Is there anything I can assist you with? I inhaled, tasting the cold clarity of resolve. Yes. I need to cancel the entire reservation. There was a pause. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Normally, this close to arrival, it's non-refundable, but let me check with my manager. She placed me on hold. Christmas music played softly through the speaker, cheerful and bright, so violently at odds with the black storm raging in my chest. When she returned, her voice was warm. Miss Morgan, given the circumstances, we can offer a full refund to your card within 5 business days. Relief and something dangerously close to triumph burned through me. Thank you, Melanie, I said, my voice calm. One more thing, my family will still arrive tomorrow. I'd appreciate it if you informed them the reservation was canceled when they get there. Another pause. Of course. We'll handle it discreetly. I hung up my fingers, trembling. My credit card refund was safe. But money was only part of this. I needed more. I needed freedom. Moving quickly now, I booked a solo trip to Bali, departing the following evening. I'd always wanted to go, always pushed it aside because someone needed me here. But there was no one to need me now. Not in the way that mattered. Then I called a locksmith, paying extra for a Christmas Day visit. He arrived within hours, a gruff man with kind eyes who didn't ask questions as he changed every lock in the house. Family issues, he asked, tightening a screw on the front door handle. I met his gaze, feeling tears threaten again. Yeah, you could say that. He nodded. Holidays bring out the worst in people. Good for you for protecting yourself. When he left, I held the new keys in my hand, feeling their cold metal bite into my skin. It grounded me, reminded me this wasn't a dream. Next, I called a moving company to come Christmas morning. They'd help me pack my parents' and siblings' belongings into the garage. They could live there until they found somewhere else. Because the house was mine. Left to me by my grandmother. Paid for by me when my parents couldn't keep up with mortgage payments. They had lived here rent-free for years while I covered the bills. And they still treated me like I was a guest in my own home. No more. That night, I sat on the couch under the quiet glow of the tree lights, a mug of tea cradled in my hands. I watched the steam rise and disappear, thinking about the girl I'd been my whole life. The helper, the planner, the one who never asked for anything. That girl was gone. In her place sat a woman who knew her worth. A woman ready to choose herself. A woman willing to walk away from people who didn't love her the way she deserved. As I sipped the cooling tea, I whispered into the silent house, feeling the words solidify into something unbreakable. This ends now. Christmas morning came cold and sharp, the sky outside still dark when my alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m. This time I woke before it even rang. For a moment, I lay there in bed staring at the ceiling as quiet strength settled into my bones. Yesterday's grief felt distant, like a bad dream fading in daylight. In its place was clarity, steel, an unbreakable calm that whispered, "Today you take your life back." I rose and moved through the house in silence, showered, dressed in jeans boots and my thick winter sweater, pulled my hair into a low ponytail, no makeup, no pretenses, just me, bare, honest, unhidden. At 7:30 sharp, the locksmith arrived. Frank was an older man with calloused hands and eyes that had seen enough of life to read stories without words. "Changing every lock, huh?" he asked as he unpacked his tools on the front porch. "Yes," I replied, voice steady. "Front, back, side doors, and the garage." He paused, studying me. "Family issues." I met his gaze, unflinching. "Something like that." He nodded. "Holidays bring out the best and worst in people." His wrench clicked against the lock, metallic and final. Good for you. By 9 Frank handed me the new set of keys, each one gleaming silver in my palm like tiny swords. I tipped him generously and watched as his van disappeared down the driveway, leaving tire tracks in the thin layer of fresh snow. At 9:30, the moving company arrived. Two men, Derek and Justin Young, polite and visibly tired from holiday shifts. They didn't ask questions when I instructed them to carry my parents' belongings: Amanda's designer makeup cases, Kyle's gaming setup, and bags of their clothes into the garage. "Are you sure you want everything out here?" Derek asked, wiping sweat from his brow despite the chill. I nodded. "They won't need it in the house anymore." He glanced at Justin, who shrugged. Then they kept working. Box after box stacked neatly along the garage wall. The space looked like a temporary storage unit by the time they were done. "We doing renovations?" Justin asked as he hoisted Kyle's gaming chair into the corner. I smiled thinly. "You could say that." They finished by noon. I thanked them and watched their truck disappear down the street. The garage was locked with its own key, which I would leave hidden in the flower pot by the door, a spot only family knew. Back inside, I moved quickly. I opened my laptop and logged into every family-linked account. Streaming subscriptions, grocery delivery, Amazon Prime, each one linked to my cards. One by one, I removed my payment methods, reset passwords, and logged them out of all devices. Then I transferred my share of the family's joint savings account to my personal account. The money I'd deposited over the years for emergencies, never touched by me, always used by them. Next came the security system. Small cameras I'd ordered weeks ago arrived just in time on Christmas Eve. I set them up facing the front door, back door, and living room, all linked to an app on my phone. Watching them blink online, ready to record, I felt a grim satisfaction settle low in my chest. Finally, I packed my suitcase for Bali. Lightweight dresses, sandals, my old camera, 2 paperback novels I'd never had time to read. Each item folded with deliberate care, like laying bricks for the foundation of a new life. By early afternoon, everything was done. The house felt hollow, but not in the lonely way it had yesterday. No, this emptiness was clean, cleared out, ready for something better. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the mugs still in the sink from the breakfast they ate before leaving me behind. I thought about washing them, thought about scrubbing away the lipstick stains and egg yolk remnants. Then I stood up and left them there. At 2:30 p.m., I drafted a letter to my family, calm, factual, ruthless in its honesty. This house was left to me by Grandma. I've paid the mortgage alone for years while you lived here rent-free. That ends now. You can remain here temporarily, but starting February 1st, you will pay market rate rent. If you choose to leave, I wish you well. If you choose to stay, know that your tenancy will require respect, repayment of past debts, and acknowledgement of my boundaries. I printed the letter, placed it in a large envelope with the new house keys, and set it atop the boxes in the garage. I included the receipt from the resort cancellation showing the full refund to my credit card, proof that I was done being their silent ATM. As the winter sun sank low outside, casting long blue shadows across the empty living room, my phone began to buzz. Dozens of missed calls. Mom, Dad, Amanda, Kyle, cousins. Their panic rising in waves as they arrived at the Colorado resort to find no reservation, no cabins, no Christmas dinner. Only strangers filling the rooms they thought were theirs. I didn't answer. Instead, I scrolled through the incoming texts, reading each frantic message as my heart beat slow and steady. Mom Natalie, there's been a mistake with the resort. Call me now. Dad, your mother's upset. Fix this. Amanda, what did you do? They said you canceled everything. Call me now. Kyle, WTF, Natalie. There's nowhere to stay. Aunt Susan, we're stranded. Please call someone. They called me selfish, dramatic, petty. I typed a single reply to the family group chat, the one I'd never been included in until now. I know you planned to leave me behind. I know you never intended to pay me back. The reservation is canceled. The refund is mine. Enjoy your Christmas." Then I silenced my phone, zipped my suitcase shut, and loaded it into my car. As I pulled out of the driveway, the house stood behind me, lights glowing softly against the falling dusk. My house, my life. They wanted a Christmas without me. They got it. But they also got something else. The knowledge that Natalie the helper, the planner, the invisible backbone of their perfect family holidays was gone, and she wasn't coming back. I spent that evening sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor, suitcase open beside me, the quiet hum of the heating vent the only sound in the house. Outside, snow fell in slow, lazy flakes drifting past the window like ashes from a fire finally burning out. My phone lay dark on the carpet. I'd turned it off hours ago. Their calls, their messages, their sudden desperate need for me after a lifetime of dismissing my presence, it was all noise I didn't want to hear. For once, I chose silence over their chaos. Around me, small piles of things I'd decided to take to Bali, breezy linen dresses. I'd never worn my camera with its cracked lens cap, a slim leather journal half filled with lists I'd written for other people, grocery lists, packing lists, reminders for Mom's medication, refills Dad's dental appointments, Kyle's college deadlines. I flipped to a blank page and ran my fingers across its smooth surface. For the first time in years, I wondered what I might write just for myself. I moved through the house slowly, almost reverently, taking in every detail. The chipped edge of the kitchen counter where I used to sit as a child, legs swinging while Mom chopped vegetables. The hallway mirror Amanda always monopolized for selfies. The corner of the living room where Kyle set up his gaming chair, cursing into his headset at midnight while I worked late on my laptop. All of it felt different now. Not sad, not angry, just real, stripped of illusion. This house was mine. Grandma had left it to me because she once whispered, "You're the only one who sees people for who they really are." At the time, I thought it was a compliment about kindness. Now I understood it was also a warning. She saw me, the way I saw them. And maybe she knew in her quiet wisdom that one day I'd need a place that was mine alone when the illusions finally fell away. I paused in front of the Christmas tree. The lights still blinked softly, warm white against red and gold ornaments I'd chosen carefully to match the theme I presented in our family group deck, elegant mountain Christmas, traditional colors with rustic touches. Not that anyone cared about the theme, but I did. Because it was my way of creating beauty in a family that never paused to appreciate it. Under the tree, the gifts I'd wrapped with trembling, exhausted hands still sat untouched. I reached for one, running my thumb over the shiny ribbon. To Mom, love, Natalie. I placed it back and stood shoulders squaring with a determination that felt like freedom. These gifts would remain here unopened until I returned. Or maybe I'd donate them. I wasn't sure yet. For the first time, I didn't feel obligated to decide immediately. In the kitchen, I brewed a mug of chamomile tea and sat by the window watching snow gather in thick blankets across the front lawn. Steam curled around my face, warm and fragrant. My chest rose and fell with deep, unhurried breaths. They would return in a few days to find the locks changed, their belongings boxed away in the garage, and the letter outlining their choices: pay market rent or leave. It wasn't revenge. It was reality. Boundaries they should have respected years ago. I thought about them driving through dark mountain roads right now, panic rising as hotel after hotel turned them away. Amanda fuming, Kyle sulking, Dad cursing under his breath while Mom tried to salvage Christmas cheer with carols playing on her phone speaker. I pictured them feeling what I had felt every holiday, helpless, unseen, unconsidered. For a brief moment, I felt pity. Then I let it go, because pity was just another form of giving, and I was done giving where there was no return. When the tea was gone and my mind felt clear, I rinsed the mug and set it on the drying rack. I turned off the Christmas lights, packed away my journal, closed my suitcase. I walked through each room, flicking off lights, whispering a quiet goodbye to the girl I'd been in those spaces. The girl who spent her life earning love through usefulness. The girl who sacrificed her dignity to keep peace that never really existed. The girl who believed family was unconditional, even when the conditions were written into every interaction. At the front door, I paused and looked back. The house was dark, silent, peaceful. For the first time, it didn't feel like a prison of expectations. It felt like possibility. A blank canvas waiting for a new story. I gripped the handle of my suitcase and whispered into the quiet, "I choose me. From now on, I choose me." Then I stepped outside into the cold, the snow crunching beneath my boots, the air sharp with the scent of pine and winter. As I loaded my suitcase into the back of my car and started the engine, warmth blasted through the vents, fogging the windshield for a moment before clearing to reveal the street lined with dark houses, each glowing softly with Christmas lights. It didn't matter where they were going. It didn't matter if they begged, bargained, or cursed me. It didn't even matter what they thought of me anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to be part of their story. I was finally writing my own. The airport was quiet when I arrived just before dawn. A few travelers dozed against their suitcases under fluorescent lights. The smell of burnt coffee and floor polish filled the air, oddly comforting in its sterile normalcy. I stood in line at check, in clutching my passport and boarding pass, feeling the unfamiliar weight of possibility settle into my chest. When the airline agent smiled and said, "Enjoy your trip to Bali," I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt surreal. For so long, every plan I made revolved around them, my family, their needs, their happiness, their comfort. I didn't even remember how to plan just for myself. I walked to the security line, each step lighter than the last. My phone buzzed relentlessly in my pocket calls, texts, voicemails piling up like desperate snowdrifts. I ignored them all. I drafted an automatic email that would send when my flight took off. "I am safe. I am choosing to spend this Christmas taking care of myself. I will not be available. We will talk when I am ready." Standing barefoot in the security scanner arms raised above my head, I felt exposed in a way that was strangely liberating. For the first time, I wasn't hiding my choices. I wasn't asking for permission. The gate area was nearly empty. I settled into a chair by the window, watching planes taxi down glowing runways. Beyond the glass, the sky was beginning to lighten, pale streaks of gold and pink brushing against indigo. Dawn. A new day. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I thought about them then. Amanda pacing the icy parking lot of a Colorado resort, screaming into her phone. Mom, her cheerful facade cracked, realizing that perhaps the daughter she'd always relied on wasn't coming to fix this. Dad silent with anger he didn't know how to process. Kyle, for once, without someone to clean up his messes. They would go home to the house they thought belonged to them, find the locks, change their belongings stacked in the garage, and a letter explaining calmly, coldly, irrevocably that their days of using me were over. Part of me wondered if they'd understand, if they'd read my words and feel remorse, shame, love, or if they'd only feel rage at losing the convenience I represented. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. Because sitting there watching the sun rise beyond the tarmac, I realized something. I wasn't leaving out of anger. I wasn't leaving to punish them. I was leaving because staying meant losing myself entirely. Because loving them had always required abandoning myself. Because I deserved more than scraps of affection tossed between insults and demands. I pulled out my journal and flipped past the lists I'd written for them. On the last page I wrote, "Today I choose freedom. Today I choose peace. Today I choose me." Boarding began. I stood, slung my bag over my shoulder, and walked onto the plane. The flight attendant greeted me with a soft, "Welcome aboard," and I smiled, feeling tears prick my eyes, not tears of grief, this time, but of relief, of release. As I buckled my seatbelt, I felt my phone vibrate one last time. I glanced at the screen. "Mom, Natalie, please, we can fix this. Come home." I let out a long, slow breath. My thumb hovered over the power button. Home. I looked out the window at the waking world below, lights twinkling and sleeping